Hello everyone. Um, have here this week's Parshas Emor. Have a very interesting thing going on here. So it says that Hashem says to Moshe, Emor lekohanim b'nei Aharon. Tell the kohanim b'nei Aharon, v'amar taleim lenefesh lo yitama ba'amif. He cannot become tamei to anyone within his nation. So Zak the Medrash, Emor lekohanim b'nei Aharon. V'tarcham ben chalei pasach imas Hashem amar teres. Imras Hashem Amar Taras, Imras Basav Adam, Einan Amar Taras. So says Rabbi Tanchum, the words of the mouth, that the sayings of a Hashem are pure. The sayings of Basav Adam are not pure. Why is that? Usually, Melech Basav Adam Nichnas Medina, Kol Bnei Medina Makal. So a king comes in, and everyone praises him. And he likes it. So I'm going to build you all sorts of roads and bathhouses, etc. I'll make a directory of direct the water to your location. And then So then but the king was lazy. He slept and he didn't stand up. He didn't do what he said he was going to do. So where is he? Hakadosh Baruch Hu ain't Cain. Elav Hashem Elokim Emes. Hashem is true. Lamu Emes. I remember Shu Elokim Chaim U'Melech Olam. So that's the first Indian. And the second Indian is Matinu Sheikim Hakadosh Baruch Hu Shmoina Isis V'Loheti Davar Megun Mipi. That Hashem didn't say something that's megune from his mouth, which is that he said Mina Beima Hatera V'Nama She'Eineno Tahira. So he didn't say Mina Behema Timei. Hashem didn't say that. So that's what the Medrash says. Now, I have a few basic questions, and that is, let's just go very basic. L'chayra, what's being said here doesn't really make that much sense, because of the fact that what is Rabbi Tanchum trying to tell us? And he's trying to say that there's a mashal that the king, who's a human king, he promises things, and since he promises things, so he's not Mekayim them. He's not Mekayim them, so therefore he ended up saying Sheker. He ended up doing, he doesn't do what he says he's going to do. But Hashem does do what he says he's going to do, and therefore that is somehow supposed to be the taich of the fact that Hashem's amaros are taharos, they're pure, they're tahar, and then somehow that should have a connection to Emor Kohanim, which is our parsha, which is the pasuk the Medrash is going on, which the simplest sibur for that is that when Hashem's telling the Kohanim is not Metame. So what he's saying is that the Emor, the Amira of Hashem is Tar, meaning Hashem is telling them that they should not become Tameh, and that is what it's talking about when it says the Amira of Hashem is Tahar. Now, there's just one basic problem with that, which is that those two things, are not the same. In other words, Rabbi Tarfam seems to be saying that the aside of being true to your word is somehow the same thing as, or the taich of, the concept that Hashem's amarais are taharais, and therefore it has connection with the idea of tahara, and Hashem is telling the Kohanim that they can't be metame to mason, they have to be tahar. But l'chara, consistency and purity, being consistent with what I say and upholding my word, l'chara, that in our minds that doesn't have anything to do with purity. So what is that? What's the connection there? That's Indian 1. Kasha 1. Question 2 is Yehoshua ben Levi, and this is actually very negea to Pesach and to Shavuos, which were and a link between those two things. Maybe we'll get into that. And essentially, he's saying that HaKadosh Baruch Hu didn't want to be mighty adavar megunim mipiv, because he said Behema asher inena tahira, and that's what it means that Hashem amaros are taharis, meaning Hashem's words is tahira have a standard of tahara, of purity, such that he doesn't say the word tameh because tameh is a davar meguna. So, and they're bought in the same medrash. So the question is, what exactly is the connection between these two? Why are they in the same segment? Why are they in the same medrash? And also, it's time to understand a bit of the Inyan. What does that mean that Hashem uh, didn't say davar meguna mipiv? I mean, we know it says Tamehu lachem, Tameh, Tameh, yeah, all the Torah says the word Tameh. So when we say that Hashem doesn't say the word Tameh, it's not true. He does say it many times. He went out of his way once to not say it because he didn't want to be Davar Meguna. But then he went ahead and he was Davar Meguna. So you're teaching me a lesson, but then you're not following your own lesson. That's not consistent. We know that throughout Chazal and throughout the Chumash, it's very clear that HaKadosh Baruch Hu keeps the Torah, kaviyachol. In other words, HaKadosh Baruch Hu keeps Shabbos. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is a medrash on that. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is B'yom HaShvi Shabbos Ve'in Nafash because HaKadosh Baruch Hu could, so to speak, count the seconds. So he Shabbos at the last second before Shabbos is Chal. It's famous Chazal. And there's another one that Hashem put on Tefillin, and all these different things where we see that HaKadosh Baruch Hu. There's another one that says Hashem learns Torah. There's many midrashim that imply that Hakadosh Baruch Hu keeps kaviyachol to his own Torah's rules, and therefore it's a little bit schwer to say that I'll go out of my way one time to teach you the lesson, but then not adhere to the lesson. I mean, what does that mean? How am I saying tameh again? How am I saying tameh all over again? And how does that explain the level of tahara of HaKadosh Baruch Hu? And then once we understand all of that, we also want to understand what that has to do with the concept of Emor la Kohanim, that the Kohen cannot become Tameh. Okay, so let's start off by introducing a very basic but important yesod, and that is that, and this is tied into Psachim, because it says in Psachim, the Masechta starts off Or La'arbasar, and Chazal say that the reason why the Mishnah says Or, even though it spends like 3 daf trying to figure out what Or means, is because the Mishnah didn't want to say Laila because of this Inyan, that you're supposed to speak Balashon Nakiya and not be Moited Davar Meguna Mipiv. And therefore, the aside of the Tahara is based in that concept. So we're going to explain that for a moment. There is a fascinating fact, 2 fascinating facts. Everything that a person sees, a person does not see ever anything from the point of view of the thing itself. When a person looks at things, all he is seeing is light, meaning that he sees reflections of the object, and that object has a reflection based off light, and what he's looking at is the reflection of that light onto that object. So a person only ever sees light. That's Nakuda Aleph. Nakuda Beis, and this is scientifically proven as well, that a person's perspective and emotional orientation towards the world directly impacts the vision that he has of things. I did many studies that prove this idea, in regards to relationships, in regards to in many different contexts, that things actually you actually look at things and see things in an entirely different way, entirely different, based off the emotional orientation you have towards that thing. And both of these concepts are proven scientifically and through studies. And the aside, therefore, the aside of Or, and the aside, therefore, of not the Yemoti Dar Megunim Mipiv, is something very fascinating. And that is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the source of existence, and the only thing that ever comes from HaKadosh Baruch Hu is good and positivity and continued bracha and blessing. And more importantly, when I say good, I mean tov, and tov means the koyach and the circumstance and the drive for the world to come to completion, which is the definition of the word tov. The concept of ra does not come from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't give and does not produce any ra. Ra is produced, even though it's true it says boirei ra, but that refers to the concept of it being in existence at all. But the actual negativity and ra that happens in the world is a direct result of the wrong and incorrect choices of human beings. Right? And it's a pasuk. It says, Mi Hashem lo seitze hara. It's a pasuk along those lines. And the Yesod, therefore, is that an expression of self which is based in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Meaning that a person, and this is why when we say in the Haggadah, that Hashem has motzias me'afela le'or gadol, to a very big light. The aside of that is very simply that when a person relates to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and when a person accomplishes the Kabbalah of Torah, which is the mitzias and the reality of what meaning the Torah is coming to do, is that it's coming to show a person how to perceive the world through the eyes of Hashem. It's Hashem's Torah, it's Hashem's rules, it's Hashem's da'as. Hashem's orientation towards the world can be seen through the Torah, and when one takes that and makes that his own orientation as well, by being Amel in Torah, what's happening is that he is now looking at the world and relating to the world through the perspective of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu only ever produces good. That's only the thing ever produces, meaning that HaKadosh Baruch Hu only ever does things and produces things and looks at things, kaviyachol, in a way that leads to the progression and the completion of any given thing or situation. And therefore, it's mechuyev that a person speaks in a language which is naki, and it never describes something in a negative way. Why? Because describing something in a negative way is the mitzias of the fact that you're expressing yourself in a manner which only operates to bring something down, not to bring it up and to see its purpose in context of tov, of its completion. So they say that there is a story with a chassid and his students, and they were walking, and they saw a dead carcass. And one of the students said, "What a disgusting dead carcass that is." And the Rebbe said to him that he shouldn't have said that, and he should never say that again. And the Yesoid is that when you have a dead carcass, you have a bunch of bees over it and a bunch of animals eating it. You can either describe that and look at it in the manner in which it's meguna, because you find it to be off-putting and gross, so you express yourself and you say something, you put something into the world, into your amira, you use your amira to describe something in a manner which the only result of what you're saying is downward progress or negativity, because when you describe something as being gross, there is no, all you did was put something down. You didn't contribute at all with that amira towards tov, towards good and towards completion, which is the whole side of the way HaKadosh Baruch Hu perceives the world. And therefore, if a person is going to learn Torah and make Torah who he is, and be a true Ben Torah and someone who has a relationship with God, he has to look at the world and describe the world and systemize the world in his own mind in a manner in which he only perceives everything, no matter how bad it may seem, in the way that it contributes to the overall good of the world. And that is, when you describe something in a positive fashion, that is what you're doing. So if you say something, if you look at an individual and you say to the individual, you are tremendously fat, or you have tremendously bad midos, all you've done is that you have imprinted in that person's mind that he is further away from good and from positivity and from the accomplishment of the goal of what he's trying to do, either become skinny if he's fat, have midas tovos, or whatever you've just put him, and you've just described to him how he is not good and how he is far from the goal and how he is not far from the goal. You've put him in a mindset in which all the focus is on the chisara. Masha Enkin, if you tell a person your midos can really use the work, you can be better at this, or you could use, you can say something in a manner in which it describes the fact that someone is on a certain point in the journey of progress towards an accomplishment, and that's how you describe a problem to them. What that does is that it puts their issue in perspective, but in the perspective of how far it is from the goal that they're reaching, so that they still realize and have the feeling that they're getting somewhere. And that is the point of describing things positively. And it's a big insight in all of education and all of accomplishment and all of building individuals, building people, is that you never say words which are by definition just describing lack. You always describe something which is lacking in terms of the fact of where it is on the scale, and where it is on the progress of getting to where it's going to be totally complete. So that's all. You're only ever mentioning chisaron when it's in context of it no longer being around, and that is based in a Kodesh Baruch Hu, and based in that perspective on the world. And the other yesod of this idea of light, of the Or Gadol that we got when we were nigal by Kodesh Baruch Hu, which, by the way, without getting to barichos, the simplest prat of Geula is that the yesod exactly of what we're saying. Geula means that we now are in a binding relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, such that we take action and express ourselves with the taking for granted of the fact that He exists and He is the basis of our realities. And I hope that's not too esoteric at all. When the Jewish people left Egypt, the Gemara says that they left without any food or water or supplies, and the reason they did it is because Zacharti la chesed noraich. Hashem remembered their chesed that they did. Why? Because they took an action in reality, in real life, that action could only have been done by them if they already took for granted as the truth of the way that they oriented themselves towards the world, that God existed. I hope that's not complicated. A person doesn't just go into a desert without any supplies, with their family, after being enslaved for hundreds of years, without any plan and any supplies. How does a person do that? The only way that he can do that is if there is orientation towards the world, and therefore the basis of his actions take for granted that there's a God, and that God will help him. So therefore, he already took that for granted. The moment that they did that and they had that switch, that was the moment of Geula. But okay, that's for a different time. But it is very essential to the Ar Yesod. Now, the other concept of Or, of purity, and this is why in Aramaic the word or ta, which literally means or light, ta this is, or ta, that is, that means, actually, or ta means light has come. Because ta in Aramaic means comes, like ta shema. So or ta means light has come. And that word or ta in Aramaic means nighttime. And the maskana of the Gemara in Pesachim, if you look on Daf Gimel Amud Beis, I believe, the maskana of Gemara in Pesachim is that or actually means night. So when we say light in the first Mishnah in Masechus Pesachim, we're referring to nighttime. And the reason for that is that one of the major yesodis of or is that it refers, you can, at night, during the day, everything is light. So what's happening is that you have light, and the light is being used to see other things through that light. Which means during the day, you're not appreciating light, you're just using light to see everything else. But during the night, where everything is dark, so then, when the light comes on, you have a nair, which is what you check comments with, etc., a discussion for a different time. That nair, you can now appreciate the light. And the light is itself has a aspect of it in which it's completely pure, meaning that the ability to see through it means that what it does is it provides a mitzias of total clarity. That is why light is associated with clarity and with figuring an idea out, because light has an aspect within it in which the fact of its pure nature, it doesn't have anything, that is physical within it that takes up any space. So therefore, what light does is you can see through it. It's totally pure, and that reflects the concept that when someone takes on the Ol of Torah and the relationship with the Kadosh Baruch Hu, what essentially happens is that since the Torah was created for human beings, and the Kadosh Baruch Hu knows exactly what a person is supposed to do and not to do, such that he will come to a point where he is living fully as himself, what happens is that the inner sense of what you are, because of the fact that it's balanced in a totally healthy and real manner, such that a person is living as the human being, as a human being is supposed to be. And what I mean is that adherence to the Torah and mitzvahs, what that does is it creates a shame adam, meaning that you're now living as human being is supposed to live. Therefore, what happens is that it becomes a sense of clarity and ease of inner self-expression to the outer self, which means that if I'm someone who is living 100% according to the way that I am meant to live, and I'm doing everything the way I'm meant to be doing it, that what that does is it removes any things which would, for some reason, close off my inner sense of self from expressing itself. So let's say if we take a child is what we would call pure. And the reason why we would call it pure is because of the fact that it doesn't have any filter from its inner essence to its outer expression. A child doesn't have anything which is blocking that. And the result of that is total transparency of self-expression from inner to outer. If someone learns Torah and they accept upon themselves that that will do the same thing for them. And essentially what I'm saying is that the concept of Averos, what an Avera does, an Avera is the lashon of being over, of passing, transgressing. What are you passing? What you're passing is you're violating the line, the geder of what comprises the tsura, the shape based in action and perspective and attitude, which comprises the the ultimate and the ideal human being in terms of the tsura of your neshama and your guf. So when someone does an avera, what he's doing is he's actually creating a blockade between his inner self, which exists, his neshama, and then his ability to express that inner self. And therefore, that results in what we see as depression or lack of self-expression, or what people call adulting, where the sense of inner innocence and purity that a child has, that we had when we were children, it didn't just automatically disappear. It disappeared because of the fact that we do things, i.e. averos, and those averos create all sorts of inner emotional mechanisms which block us from expressing ourselves purely and innocently. And that's the reason why we don't express ourselves that way. Because when we do averos, we create that blockade. And the simplest type of that is that it's we do that by by um, by doing an avera which indulges a aspect of the reality of what we are, which is within the Bahamian level of our existence. Meaning that when we do averas, we are giving space and room in our mental and emotional lexicons to the animal aspect of what we are, which has no sense of self-expression and purity of uh, emotional expression, because it's an animal, and we exist on that level as well as the animals. But we're not supposed to give that sense of our existence any room in the reality of our self-expressions as human beings. And when we do, so then it becomes a problem. Yeah. Then it becomes a problem. And that point, when we do that, is what creates the block between our neshamas and our self-expression, because our self-expression is expressing itself as it is the animal that we are, with our taivas, etc. And therefore, we can't express ourselves as the innocent, beautiful souls that we are, and I mean this 100% seriously, because our animalistic desires and sense of self is in the forefront, and it's blocking it.